Yo, what's up, everybody? It's Rick. Kyle and I are bringing you guys another episode of Only Football, brought to you by Star 6 Media. Today we are going to be talking Jalen Carter, booked and released on the same day. We're also going to be talking about Bryce Young not throwing at the Combine. Also, the Combine is going on. We're also going to be talking about the Commanders releasing Carson Wentz and tagging Darren Payne, as well as Mariota being released by the Falcons, Leslie Frazier no longer on the Bills, at least for 2023, and Mel Kiper's mock draft. Let's get it.
Let's go!
Yo!
Dude, I couldn't tell if it was me, but I checked. Did you see my comment?
I did. I was like, why did he comment on it?
Did you hear it too?
No, what was it?
Oh, it's coming in weird.
Oh, is it?
Yeah, I don't know what it is. Maybe it's a setting or something.
Yeah.
Well, guys, welcome to another episode of Only Football Offseason Edition. We are covering the Combine. We're not in Indianapolis. We are not there yet in our career. But we have been keeping track of things from afar, including the biggest story probably of the week, and that is Georgia. Oh, yeah.
Cheers.
Georgia. Top prospect Jalen Carter ended up getting booked and released for reckless driving, some association that had to do with the crash that fatally killed two people after, I don't know if it was the night after the parade of the national championship celebration of Georgia winning back-to-back championships.
Yep.
But definitely not the kind of story that you want to see. But I hate to say it, it seems like every single year during the Combine week, there's something that just gets thrown out there that you're like, man, like I think Josh Allen said the N-word like when he was like 14 on Facebook.
Yeah.
It's like every year there's just like one thing that's like, this one actually, involved people dying, and it was very recent. So this isn't like, pulling some stuff from a long time ago, and he's like, yeah, I was an idiot. This just happened, which as far as like trying to prove to the front offices of a lot of teams that you're a changed man, it's a lot harder to sell when you made such a boneheaded decision a couple weeks ago. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
What do you think about this?
So it's a rough one, because the whole thing, and I'm assuming anybody who listens to this podcast is pretty knowledgeable about what's happened. They read the articles, they've seen videos, they've seen people who, from NFL analysts to media figures talking about this. Jalen Carter was apparently racing with one of his Georgia teammates, Devin Willock, who was in the same vehicle that got in an accident with a recruiting personnel person, Chandler LaCroix. There was also another, I think, lineman in that car as well. And so around 2:30 a.m. Eastern time, and this was, I believe, the night pretty much right after that Georgia had won, they were racing. They were going like 100+ miles per hour down this road. And apparently what happened was LaCroix's car, I guess it was going too fast, that he had tried to turn his wheel left, couldn't turn left, and that's what caused him to hit the curb, spin out, and I don't know, hit a pole or something, which ended up in them dying and another guy in the car getting hurt, and I forget if there was a fourth person or not. And the reason that Jalen Carter was involved, or at least that he was booked and released, was because the information that he had given a couple hours after the incident because he had left after that, came back because there was police and stuff. The information he had given was a little weird because at first one of the reports given was to the police was that he heard it from an apartment nearby. He heard an accident, so he came and was like, what's going on? But there was also another comment and another statement given from Jalen Carter saying, I was driving next to them, behind them and next to them. So it was puzzling information for the police, and that's kind of why they issued that warrant for his arrest. Now Jalen Carter obviously came back. He was, like we said, booked and released on Wednesday. I think the entire process took about 30 minutes. He paid a $4,000 bail and was pretty much released. He missed his combine media day. He missed his workouts, or at least I don't know if he missed his workout. I think it was just the media day, if I'm not mistaken, but somebody check me on that. So it was a crazy situation. And he had actually put out a statement. There's no question in my mind that when all the facts are known, that I will be fully exonerated of any criminal wrongdoing. And that's kind of what's been happening so far as of today being Thursday. Now, my opinion on it is just it sucks because 2 people died. One of his teammates and a recruiting staff member from Georgia. And while I understand that you might want to go out and celebrate in a manner like that, you kind of want to like drive a car really fast. Some of us, I myself have gone 100 miles per hour on a highway, a freeway, because it's like this is a dope feeling, you know what I mean? But
too fast, too furious. I'm too fast for y'all.
Hey, we're all family. We're family, all right. For Jalen Carter though, and really a lot of athletes that are expected to go first overall, first round even, or in the draft in general. If you know you're going to go in the draft to an NFL team, you want to stay away from certain situations as much as possible. Again, the feeling, the euphoria, you just won the national championship. Again, you want to celebrate with your teammates. I get that. I feel like we've all been there where we've wanted to celebrate something that meant a lot to us at the moment. But in a way, and again, it's just hard to be in that person's mind. And you've got to get away from a situation like that. You can't put yourself in dangerous situations that will lead to unnecessary circumstances like it was today, right? Like he was told maybe about a half hour before his media day at the combine that you actually have to go, you have a warrant out for your arrest and you have to go talk to the police. And that's when he canceled his media day. So me, just overall, like you got to understand what's at stake for you and your family. And you've got to be able to, again, stay away from those certain types of situations when you know what your future is kind of headed to. So that's kind of where I stand on this topic.
Yeah. And for me, I mean, there's 2 things that I look at. Mm-hmm. The first thing is like almost every decision that every emotional decision. I was just listening to something about this today is normally wrong. Like the when you're angry and you're like, just do it. I don't care. Like any of like anything that's being driven by emotion and not logic is usually bad. And obviously this whole event is, like you said, in the moment, this is all emotional. All of these things. And as far as like the legal side of it, my question is like, how much trouble can he get into he wasn't driving the other car and they crashed and unfortunately people died. And when people die, they always want somebody to take a fall for that, like the family members, whatever the case is. But they also are, in control of their own decisions. And I think the most he could get in trouble for is some kind of antagonizing law, maybe. But to me, that's not, he was wrong. He did a bad thing, racing. But at the end of the day, I don't know how much trouble somebody can get into for just antagonizing another person to make a bad decision. Like if I'm flipping a loaded gun up in the air and catching it and doing tricks, and then somebody else grabs one and does it too and shoots himself in the head on accident, how much trouble should I be in for, doing that. I mean, for all we know, he has been racing cars his whole life for all we know. And he felt comfortable in that.
Yeah.
I mean, he was drinking, so like he shouldn't be racing. But for all we know, like he was comfortable in that position. And we do know he likes to speed because they found a body cam of a police officer that had him going like 90 miles an hour in a 50, and he got pulled over by the police, and they were like, "Slow the fuck down!" Like that's what the cops said to him. And I don't know if he got a ticket or not because he's a star player. But
I was gonna say the cop knew. He's like, I can't get this guy a ticket. The luxuries.
so it does show like a little bit like, okay, maybe he likes to go fast. That's his thing. And it would be different if he was like driving the car that crashed and killed the people and he like ditched the car.
Yeah.
Like, that would be a totally different situation. But as far as just antagonizing someone else to make their own bad decision, I don't know if that's going to hold up in court.
Yeah, and I think the biggest thing here is like the puzzling information or the puzzling statement he gave to police. Like I said earlier, right? Like one statement was he heard it from a nearby apartment and he came back to understand what's going on. And then the other one was I was racing next to them and I was, behind them and driving next to them. And, that may be why. Maybe they wanted to clarify some things. And again, I don't from the article I read, the police officer who was there when he took his statement said he wasn't or he didn't look. I don't think they administered some sort of drinking test or anything, but he said he didn't look impaired by alcohol. So I don't know if he was drinking, but the cops said, he didn't look impaired. So the thing that worries me about like behavior like this is you've got to remember what happened not this past season, but the season before in Las Vegas with Henry Ruggs. Henry Ruggs was speeding, going 100 plus miles an hour down a road in Las Vegas, crashed into another vehicle, killed a woman and her dog, and he's in jail. And his career, his future is over. You know what I mean?
That was the first story I thought of when I saw this.
Exactly. And these are things that you got to think about. And just real quick before we move on, Ishant, Ariel, bear down. Cheers. Thanks for joining the stream.
Cheers, brother.
You got to think about stories like that where the consequences far outweigh, what you did. You know what I mean? Like there's no amount of racing and speeding you can do because the consequences and the likelihood that you get caught they're just greater. I can't wrap my head around something like this. And look, I mean, I'm 31 years old, so I'm probably looking at this kid like, oh, you're a bad kid or something like that. Like fucking Mr. Grumpy old man, get off my lawn type of shit. I get that.
How fast was he going?
I don't know how fast he was going. I think they were able to tell that the car that crashed, the one that LaCroix was in, that it was going at least 104 miles per hour or at max 104, something like that.
Just keep in mind, like, Henry Ruggs was going 156 miles an hour.
Oh, my God, he was.
So, like, we've all gone 95, 100, but, like, what Henry Ruggs was doing was, like, fatal.
It's ridiculous, yeah.
I mean, the fact that he survived that is...
That's very surprising.
And that's usually how it happens. The drunk driver survives. I mean,
it always is.
Yeah,
it always is that way. So, I mean, other than that...
No, I didn't mean to interrupt you. You said you feel like a finger pointer, like get off my lawn.
Yeah, and again, it's easy to say that from our position, at home.
Yeah.
Nice and comfortable, already gone through that part of life without any real big consequences. But again, you've also, as an athlete in Georgia, in a big SEC school, in a Big Ten school, and just a big school in general, you got to be able to be like, look, I know what lies ahead of me because I'm being talked about. I'm going to the combine. I'm being looked at by teams, by scouts. Like, I got to be able to take advantage of this opportunity because it doesn't happen to everyone. So it's easy for me to say that, and in the moment, again, I mentioned like it's there's got to be a lot of emotions running for Jalen Carter and those everyone really involved. But again, I just feel like you got to understand what's at stake here when you're doing something like that.
Yeah, and I'll just say this really quick. When I used to work at a nightclub, one of my roommates, his grandfather was like the governor of Kentucky, and his mom's a heart surgeon. Just grew up like super wealthy, and literally the definition of like white privilege. Like,
yeah.
He probably totaled like so many. I mean, he was just always in these nice vehicles and like treating them like shit, and it always bothered me. And he one time he picked me up and he was like going over the bridge in Miami, and he was going like probably 140, and I knew he had
God.
I knew he had been drinking, and like I just remember even at that young age being like, I would never make these decisions. You know what I mean? So even though like at this point we feel like old finger pointers, they're don't discredit the sometimes even in your youth, if you're grown up to know certain things are right and certain things are just clearly wrong. I knew at a young age drinking and driving is like a bad thing because my aunt died on a motorcycle from somebody that was drinking and driving, and we were living with her at the time. So it was like crazy. Like she just didn't come home one day and was dead.
Wow.
And it was intense. So I mean, I do think like he was at a strip club. Like it's assumed when you're going to a Waffle House after a strip club that you've had some drinks. Like I don't know a lot of sober people that like go to strip clubs and then are like craving Waffle House at 3 a.m. Like there was like a drunk generalization. It's that.
It's like, that right there. And that's what Ishant Ariel here in the comments is saying. I hope I'm saying that right, by the way. Apparently the details of the Carter story is that they were at a strip club and they decided to go to Waffle House at 3 a.m. but decided to race. And that's the main reason the situation happened. So I guess this wasn't like a planned race thing, if those details are correct from Ishant. Again, thank you for tuning in. But like you said, man, like that is just the recipe of a drunken night right there. Hey, let's go to the Waffle House, dude. The strip club on
the way there.
Yeah, it's insane. But prayers up to the family of those that were lost, the lives that were lost, and hopefully the one other person involved in the crash. I wish I could remember the name, but I don't think I wrote it down here in the notes. Warren McClendon. He was also injured. And there was, I assume, one or two other people in there. Hopefully they make a speedy recovery. And again, hopefully, the people whose lives, the family of those who were lost can kind of, maybe recover from this. And hopefully Jalen Carter is, not really too much at fault here. Again, I think it was the information given to the police. But like you said, how much trouble could he actually get in? I mean, maybe speeding, maybe driving recklessly, but I mean, can he really be held responsible for, again, the decision of others? How much did he have, to do with that? And again, unfortunately, they lost their lives, but Jalen Carter was, he wasn't the one behind the wheel killing them,
Yeah, and the other thing is like, Jalen Carter, if he is in a race and somebody crashes, right? If you're not drinking, like, why wouldn't you stay behind?
Yeah,
you know what I mean?
That's a great question, honestly.
Yeah. So I mean, I can't say anything because if I was drunk and racing and someone crashed, I probably wouldn't stick around. I mean, because there's so many. I would call the police, and I think he did. I think he did call the police, right? He was
I don't remember.
I think he was if he wasn't, that's kind of an important detail. But yeah, I mean, I would definitely call the police. But like, you're about to be the number one overall pick potentially. I mean, it's easy to finger point when you're not the one in that situation. I mean, it's a bad situation, but to say that, I would have stuck around and got arrested in a DUI and whatever else comes with it, because at this point now, like, he can't get charged with a DUI. There's no way to prove that he was drinking at this point.
Yeah, so, you can't. Yeah, it's got to be tough.
Yeah, so like you said, he could only probably get in trouble for speeding, and even that, I mean, it's only a fraction of what would have happened had he stuck around. Not saying it's the right thing to do, but I understand it. You know, being a criminal myself.
I was going to say, I've done some shit that I do not feel comfortable saying on this podcast, even. Oh, God.
Rick's a criminal. You guys heard it here first. Subscribe.
Oh, my God. Oh, all right. Well, again, hopefully everyone that is injured right now can kind of recover from this, and hopefully all the details will be out sooner so we can get a clearer picture on what happened. Let's move on to another SEC school, or at least the star of another SEC school. Bryce Young from Alabama will not be throwing at the combine. We're bringing you a lot of some college news, or at least college player news. So yeah. So you're welcome, college football watchers. Bryce will not throw at the combine. He is going to wait until his own pro day, which is reminiscent of what quarterbacks have done in the past. Johnny Manziel and Teddy Bridgewater being a couple that I know of. From a article I read literally 5 minutes before we started recording. So he won't be doing it at the combine. He'll be doing it at his own pro day. And Kyle had made a short about this on YouTube, so go check that out on our YouTube page at Star6 Media on YouTube. So go check that out. Kyle, what do you make of this? And I mean, I've heard things from like certain quarterbacks about why this is a good thing, why this is a bad thing. But what's your take on Bryce Young not throwing at the combine?
I mean, it depends. Like as a fan, I don't like it because I like to watch that kind of stuff. As a GM, I probably wouldn't be a fan of it because I mean, you have general managers. Like I know almost every head coach. And coaching staff, for that matter, anyone important on the coaching staff and all the general managers are in Indianapolis. Yeah. So they have all flown down there, and it almost feels like, hey, man, like, you're a college athlete. Like, get in line. Like, if Bill Belichick and, the GM and Sean Payton, all these people fly to come see you throw, and you don't want to throw, I don't know if that's, like, the best look, but at the same time, for the player, I think you mentioned it about RG3 saying like a lot to lose, little to gain. But here's the thing, man. All of the GMs, they already know that you are throwing to receivers that you're not used to. They already know all the disadvantages, and they keep that in consideration when they go out and throw. So it almost feels to me like I don't want to say you don't believe in yourself, but it feels like somewhere in that genre, right? Like, why wouldn't you just go out there and sling it? Like, if you were like, I'm God's gift to the world. I'm the #1 overall pick. Like, you guys are blessed to watch this. Hey, guys, watch this. Give me a football. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I just feel like that's kind of the big dick energy that I think GMs and head coaches are looking for in a #1 overall quarterback, a guy that's going to lead their team. And not only that, but when you look at Bryce Young, his mechanics are fine, but as far as the deep ball, he doesn't have the deep ball. He is so undersized. He looks like everyone's little brother that he's walking with. And not only is he undersized in height, but he's undersized in weight. He's not built like a tank. So, I mean, you're already talking about a quarterback that doesn't have the deep ball, doesn't have the height, doesn't have the weight. Probably a lot of question on whether he'll be able to stay healthy for a 17-game season, and then he doesn't want to throw. I just think all of that together, I'm taking CJ Stroud.
Yeah, and so, and I kind of agree with a little bit of both sides, the pros and cons of not throwing at the combine, right? What I will say to this, and this has probably been one of the more recent memories that I've had, at least almost a recent example too, of like why throwing at the combine is not necessarily the most amazing thing, but if you look good doing it, you're going to get drafted really high, is Zach Wilson.
Yeah.
Zach Wilson put on a fucking show at the Combine. And year 2, Jets fans are like, we need another quarterback. So now I'm not saying this happens to every quarterback who throws at the Combine and wows people, because you've seen people wow people and then they turn into stars. What I will say to that is RG3, when he made that point, right? He's like, you have more negative than positive to gain from throwing at the Combine. And the reason is, like you stated, right? You're throwing to guys who you haven't necessarily practiced with, who don't know who don't have the best route running. You might miss a few passes that make you look bad as a quarterback. But at the same time, it's like, well, if you're a quarterback that you say you are, aren't you supposed to be able to kind of adapt to certain situations in that situation, right? I mean, look, I know from experience, when you're throwing to very underachieving, not NFL level wide receivers like Justin Fields did last year with the Bears, it looks like shit. It looks bad. And really it looks bad on the quarterback, but as a fan, you know the level of talent just isn't there on that receiver. So I think the bad is a little bit more if you throw to wide receivers that aren't necessarily practicing with you aren't doing that. But I do agree that you have to be able to adapt to situations like that, where you have to be that guy. And we've said it before a lot on this show. You have to be the guy that makes that receiver better. You know, you can make that receiver an all-star, a Pro Bowl or something like that. If you can't be that guy, then what happens when you face some adversity? Are you going to just crumble and just be like, well, we didn't have enough time practicing, we don't have a connection, something like that? I see both sides, but I will lean more towards, if Bryce Young is able to have his own pro day, and he's expected to be at the first or second quarterback taken in the draft. I mean, if it works in his favor, then why not? Why have the possibility of looking bad when you could just look good from the jump?
Well, I have an answer for that, and it's because Anthony Richardson easily moves like he's young size, but he's more explosive. He's got a bigger arm. He's 6'2", and he's 225 pounds. So if you say, well, why look bad when I could just look good at my pro day? It's because you not practicing, let's say that you remain neutral. You don't, let's be honest, you get knocked maybe a point, right? So if you're a 9, now you're at an 8 in people's, book, because I'll get to that. But let's say Anthony Richardson goes out and just kills it. Right? Yeah. He's throwing really good balls. He's confident. He went out there. He didn't know these guys. And now it's like, why would you take Bryce Young over Anthony Richardson? Okay, so it's not that, like, you should be trying to protect your draft stock, I think. Like, I don't think Bryce Young's not Trevor Lawrence. Like, he's not in position to be like, no, I'm good. You all know who I am. Like, Bryce Young is, like, has a lot of things that people are questioning. Yeah. And one of those things is, okay, like you said, you're not comfortable with throwing unless you're in Alabama with your receivers. What happens when a guy from the practice squad, he gets elevated to the active roster, and you have 4 games before your Thursday night football game, and you're going on the road, right? You're not going to be in Alabama for every game, and you're not going to have your star Alabama receivers for every game. Like, there was a time where I think Mac Jones had, he had Henry Ruggs, Jerry Jeudy, and another really good receiver. And it's just like, I think sometimes Alabama, like, I'm trying to think of how to word this. I think the talent at Alabama sometimes is so rich that we get a false idea of who players are. It's like, of course, Alabama quarterbacks thrived under the best O-line in national football and the best wide receivers and talent skill positions in the nation. Like, everybody looks good at Alabama. So that is why, more than any other college, I feel like you have to come out on a day to throw to people that you don't know, is because it just seems like everything is a little inflated. The stats are inflated. You're up 35-0 in the first quarter when you play at Alabama. Like, let's see you go out into an unfavorable condition, and then maybe it's the first time you've done this your whole career, and what do you do with it? You say you're not going, and it's just
yeah. And honestly, that whole thing you just said makes me lean more towards do your own pro day. I gotta say, like, I am definitely on the opposite side of you, and the reason being, again, is like, why look worse than you have to if you could look really good at your own pro day? And it really is too, because you mentioned Alabama. There was an interview with Derrick Henry that said, he was like, Alabama is probably as close as you can get to the NFL, but the NFL is a different monster, right? So the SEC and Alabama and all these teams, like, they're fucking there, dude. So I think the talent is not only like plentiful, like you were saying, so you do look a little bit better, but for Derrick Henry, an NFL player, to say, yeah, the SEC is up there, it's almost to the NFL, but the NFL is a different animal, that says a lot. And the name, the school you go to, I really don't think it matters to an NFL team. I personally do not believe that a Jim Irsay or a who's the other team that needs a quarterback, the Texans, whoever the GM is there, is looking at Bryce Young like, no, I'm not going to draft you. Dude, there's no way a GM is looking at that. NFL fans, maybe, but if you're a Texans fan or if you're a Colts fan, you're like, I want either Bryce Young or CJ Stroud. 100%. No, like, questions asked. I want one of them, no matter if they are doing the combine, they're doing their own pro day, whatever. I want one of those two guys to quarterback my franchise. And real quick, before we get to you, Kyle, just want to give a heads up to Bill. Bill joining the stream.
What's up,
Bill? Welcome back, Bill. Appreciate you. But yeah, man, that's kind of what I believe as a fan, and I would assume a GM is thinking about a Bryce Young.
Well, so hear me out though. Mm-hmm. If Anthony Richardson goes out and totally crushes it, here's the thing. Alabama, you said Derrick Henry, it's the closest thing to playing pro football. So I do think that there's an advantage for any quarterback that's playing at Alabama, right? Mm-hmm. It's like every Alabama quarterback gets drafted in the first round. I mean, somebody does. And who are the great quarterbacks to come out of Alabama? Like, I'll wait for the rest of this podcast for you to name
Jalen Hurts.
Jalen Hurts, yeah, the guy that they benched for Tua, and those are two quarterbacks that you could make an argument that are the best to come out of Alabama in the last 20 years.
Yeah,
I mean, there's a long list of highly drafted quarterbacks that just ended up being Mac Jones, who might still be something, but
AJ McCarron's,
yeah, you're exactly right. So when I look at Florida and I see Anthony Richardson, I think about, well, sometimes the best quarterbacks are, when they don't play on the best teams, it does lower their draft stock, but it's not accurate. Like, you don't always want the quarterback that had the best winning record or who won the national championship. Tom Brady didn't win a national championship. Peyton Manning never won a national championship. There are a lot of great quarterbacks that, because they were at schools like Michigan or Tennessee, they weren't, a dynasty, but they made their team a lot better. Jay Cutler went to Vanderbilt. Like, there's not always going to be a lot of college success, but they will say you definitely, like, you excelled. You got the most out of your school that you went to. Like, you went to Kentucky, and Kentucky. Who is it that went to Levis?
Oh, Will Levis.
Will Levis went to Kentucky, and they lost like 4 games in his 3 seasons there. And Kentucky never made it to, the playoffs or anything like that. But damn, dude, that's Kentucky. You squeeze the most juice out of Kentucky. There may be something to that. There may be something more, I don't want to say special, but more impressive about getting your team to only lose 4 games in 3 years at Kentucky than losing 2 games at Alabama in the same time frame. So I do think if Anthony Richardson goes out this week and throws and wows people, like you saw Zach Wilson. It's funny. I talked yesterday on Only Football with Kyle. I talked about that exact thing. That is me. that Zach Wilson whole thing that happened. I talked about. It was like nobody really cared about him. And then he went to his draft day and threw it, and they were like, he's going to be Patrick Mahomes. He's like, no, he's not.
Yeah,
he had a good draft day.
Exactly.
But I do think if these guys come out here this week and they move around like Bryce Young, they are built bigger. I think there's going to be some question about, hey, why are we going with the guy that's not even throwing, that's undersized? That played for Alabama. I mean, I know what you mean by you're like leaning towards like the best interest of Bryce Young.
Correct.
And it seems like I'm leaning in the interest of the GM, but I'm leaning in the best interest of Bryce Young. I just think he is not helping. You know what I'm saying? Is like
just in a different scope of things. Yeah.
It's not about what he doesn't do. It's about what the other guys are going to do.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean?
If you were Bryce Young in this situation, what you're saying is you want to go out there and prove that you're better than a Richardson, that you're better than a CJ Stroud by not having your own pro day and throwing at the combine versus what he's doing. No, I 100% get that. I just think, again, if you run the risk of looking bad at the combine, where all the NFL GMs are at, where all the NFL head coaches are at, where the scouts are, quarterback coaches, everyone, all eyes on you because of maybe lack of practice, lack of this, lack of that from a wide receiver. I just don't understand why you would do that, right? Like I get what you're saying. You want to go out there and prove yourself, but you can prove yourself at your pro day too in a more controlled environment. And really that's kind of what these guys want to do, right? They want to maximize their potential, get the most money, become the first round draft pick or the first overall pick, because the first overall pick comes with a ton of fucking money. Just ask Aiden Hutchinson, right? From the Lions. It comes with a ton of fucking money, and that sets you up for a long, long time. And whether or not the big schools like Alabama, small schools like Kentucky, whether or not one of them produces a good quarterback or doesn't, it's kind of just up to the NFL and that person, really. If Bryce Young works really fucking hard in the NFL and Josh Richardson kind of turns out to be a Vince Young, something like that, or even what was the LSU quarterback's name that went to the Raiders? Jamarcus Russell. Could you imagine him turning out to be like one of those guys, or a Mitch Trubisky who went to the University of North Carolina and was hyped up so much by the Bears, badly by them, and look what he did. He didn't do anything. Zach Wilson, the most recent example, right? Like, it's just it's a crapshoot almost, but it really is dependent on the person who's working the hardest. And I think
Kyler Murray.
Exactly. He's like
that?
He's like 5'2". The man can't see over his offensive line. I'm taller than Kyler Murray.
I mean, we don't even know if he is going to be good in this league.
And that's what I'm saying, right? There was a lot of hype because he came from Oklahoma, right?
Yeah, because he was drafted in the first round to play baseball.
Yeah, you see what I mean? Like, and that I feel like baseball would have been perfect for him. There really is no size in baseball to be. But I think really what it comes down to as far as quarterbacks, and I think you would agree with this, is like how much work you put in. You always hear the saying, right? If you god damn it, what is that saying? Garbage in, garbage out.
Yeah.
If you don't put in any time in, what do you expect the result to be? Fucking fame and success? No, you're just going to be working harder or looking like shit. So I think we can both agree that it just really does depend on the person and how hard they work, how much they're into the playbook, how well they're talking to their wide receivers, their offensive coordinator, their head coach. Those type of things that really make you like a Jalen Hurts when he worked in the offseason. Remember when you were hyping him up and I didn't believe you, and then I was like, oh, now I believe it. That's what it is, man. It's the Jalen Hurts formula of working hard, talking to your teammates about the playbook, about being the best team you can be, and going out and performing.
Yeah, no, I totally agree, and honestly, only time will tell.
Mm-hmm.
this could lean at both ways. Like it could be at the end of this week that people are. I just don't think Bryce Young's going to be the number 1 overall pick, and I felt kind of strongly about that. And then when this came out, I almost felt like that guaranteed he's not going to be the number 1 pick, because I was like, man, like what kind of, it's like you don't even have a quarterback that you could point to and be like, well, it worked for him. Mm-hmm. All those undersized guys are stocky, somewhat, and it's just like, I feel like Bryce Young's going to get hit one time by, a guy like a Nick Bosa or, even the Derwin James,
and just get fucked up.
Somebody's going to fuck him up, man. Like bad, worse than he's ever been. Like, and is he going to be able to get up? I doubt it.
Yeah.
That's like if I got hit, man. How much does he weigh? I'm 200 pounds.
I think he's like 190 or something like that. Like he is tiny.
That would be like me going out there and getting lit up by Derwin James. You know what I mean? I just don't. I don't know how you could draft somebody with such a valuable pick, number 1 overall. It just seems like a huge gamble. And Anthony Richardson or whatever. I mean, not a really like a name that we kind of had, in our face. It was just kind of like this last couple of weeks. It's like Anthony Richardson, and it's like they just picked a couple of guys to
hype up.
And then but for me, it's like, okay, I understand that great quarterbacks come out of colleges like that. So I'm always interested and willing to be sold. And it kind of starts by watching these guys throw at events like this week. So fun to track.
No, absolutely, it will be. And the example I had given earlier about these quarterbacks didn't throw, and RG3 had a good quote on that. Teddy Bridgewater is the only one in the league that's left in the league, and Blake Bortles is the one who went to the AFC Championship. So, I mean, and he's been out of the league. So that just goes to show you what happens when you don't throw at the combine or whatever. But
yeah, it's a big deal this week.
Yeah. Before we move on to our next segment, I just want to, if you guys were watching on YouTube, on Twitch, Twitter, or Facebook, just kind of averting your eyes to the top there right under our Twitter handles. We are on Venmo, Cash App, and PayPal. If you guys are listening on podcast form, we would love if you guys would support us in our dream of going to Las Vegas next year for the Super Bowl. That would be fucking dope. Me and Kyle will sleep in a trailer. I don't care as long as we get to the Super Bowl. Our Venmo is at OnlyFootball. Our Cash App is #OnlyFootballKR, as well as our PayPal at OnlyFootballKR. Again, we are on Venmo, Cash App, and PayPal. If you guys would love to donate to the show, we would really appreciate that. We would love to get to Vegas next year because that would be fucking sick.
And we need beer money.
Yeah, we need beer money. My mom won't give me any more beer money.
My mom was my babe. Is failing English.
It's not a fucking phase, Mom. But yeah, we would love if you guys are enjoying our content. We'd love if you would support us on Venmo, Cash App, or PayPal, and we will put out more content for you guys if we get to the Super Bowl, which would be fucking sick.
That'd be crazy.
I know, that would be great. I would make unofficial like lanyards with our faces on it. Like, hey, we're from Star 6 Media. We're allowed to be in the media room for this. Oh, dude, we could totally fucking do it.
Let us just walk right in.
Like,
I'm here right now with Russell Wilson. Russ, do you expect to make it to the Super Bowl just 1 year after being a...
you know what? I got to thank God. I'm Mr. Unlimited, so I knew I was going to be here.
Unlimited.
So we would really appreciate your support here on Only Football. Get Kyle and I some beer money and to the Super Bowl in Las Vegas.
It's a win-win.
It's a win-win for everyone. All right, let's move on to the next news of the week in the NFL. And we got a couple of nuggets here from the Commanders doing two moves pretty much simultaneously. They have franchise tag Darren Payne, their defensive tackle, who set a career high 11.5 sacks just this past season. He was second among all defensive tackles with 21 tackles for loss, and he was named the Pro Bowl alternate this season as well. His franchise tag salary is $18.9 million. I don't know if that is the exclusive tag or not, but either way, making a lot of money.
Yeah, I was going to say, it seems high enough to be that. And I think that's a good move, because I think this happens a lot of times where they draft a player and maybe he does fine. He's he's serviceable, and then maybe as the last year on the contract, he had a career high, and then it's like, hey, let's tag him, and if he can do it again, then we'll give him the
deal.
Yeah. So
I know you can do 2 years worth of tags, right? So if they tag, this is the first year they tag him, next year they can tag him again. Although I think for next year he can accept other offers from teams. Although I'm not sure. But do you think, I guess this is kind of just a general question. Do you think players appreciate franchise tags?
I think it depends. It
depends
who you are.
Yeah.
There definitely times where, because what the tag does is it averages I think it's the 7 highest paid people at that position. It averages their salaries, and then you get paid them. So in a way, if you're on a rookie contract and you've been making $1 million a year with incentives, and now you get tagged and they give you $18 million overnight, it's you got to really think about it from their perspective. They're like, okay, at least now I can do everything that I need to do, and even if I never play another snap, I'm good. So this is the first time these guys really see money most of the time. But if you're a guy that's getting tagged year after year, I think it does take its toll. But at the same time, I think the quarterback that made the most money at one point was Kirk Cousins, because he got tagged 3 years in a row, and people didn't realize how much freaking money Kirk Cousins was making by being tagged, and he was just fine. It didn't seem to bother him. He's like, yeah, sure, I'll get paid, the top 5% of players.
Because I think the franchise tag is the average of the highest 5 salaries of that position.
So I wasn't sure how many it was, but it's the franchise tag is not cheap, but it's a win-win kind of, because it's they don't have to take a long gamble on how you're going to be in the next 5 years. It allows them to see for one more year, but in that 1 year you're going to get paid a shit ton of money. So I think it just works out for both people. But you see people like Lamar Jackson who definitely have a problem with it, and they're like, hey man, I'm looking for $200 million guaranteed. I don't want to play on $40 million for 1 year. So it just depends who you are, I think.
Yeah, and like you said, you brought up Kirk Cousins. Why not get paid the top 5 salaries, or the average of the top 5 salaries? By the way, Bill, I saw your comment. We're going to try to work on it. Hopefully this is a little bit better. I'm kind of away from the mic a little bit, so I think the levels will hopefully clear out that way.
How does mine sound? Does mine
your sound's good? Yeah, your sound's good. So like you said, it really depends if you're financially, if what you're looking to gain is a financial, not leverage, but just more money, basically. Financial, planning or whatever you want to call it is what you're aiming for, then why not get tagged, right? It doesn't really matter. I'm making a lot of money for playing an extra year with this team. Now, again, if you're a Darren Payne who's looking at a Washington team who is going through a ton of shit this year with your owner, with the players, you don't have a quarterback anymore, which is what we'll get into next. Is a Darren Payne in kind of his prime right now, where he's like, look, I want to be on a team that's going to compete in a playoff and possibly a Super Bowl. I don't want to be franchise tag. That's kind of where what you're talking about is like the other side where it's like, I'm getting kind of pissed. You know what I mean? Like, I don't want to be on this team anymore, and I want to be on a contender. So those are the two sides of the coin on the franchise tag. I think, like you said, it's a good move for the Commanders to tag Payne because he had such a great year. And with, oh my God, what's his name? The other defensive stud they have on that team.
Chase Young.
Hurt. Chase Young. He was basically hurt all year last year. Once he comes back, maybe it becomes a better team. They also have other defensive guys on there. I don't know if they're free agents or not. I don't really follow the Commanders that well, but if they can become a good defense, really they need just a quarterback, almost like a stopgap quarterback. If what's his name doesn't really work out, their rookie guy that you don't think is going to start. What's his name? Something Bowen, some shit like that. Anyway.
I can't remember right now either.
Yeah, it's like he's that like forgettable, to be honest. So
shots fired.
Yeah. Yeah, Sam Howell. There we go, Sam Howell.
Oh, Sam Howell.
Yeah. Bill asked what happened to Heineke. So I believe he's a free agent. From what I last saw, I don't think they have him under contract. But I wouldn't mind if they brought Heineke back either, because I mean, was he great? No, he wasn't really that good either, but I mean, he kind of brought some sort of like what we talked about last year, some good emotional energy into that stadium, which kind of leads me into the other point of the Commanders. They have released Carson Wentz. They have released him from his contract. It looks like, let me double check here. Washington saves about $26 million on the salary cap this offseason. He had 2 years remaining on his contract, but had no guaranteed money. So another good move by the Washington Commanders, because Carson Wentz he's not going to come back and be the Carson Wentz of that almost MVP season in 2018. You know what I mean? Yeah. What do you think of this move, Kyle? And where do you think Carson Wentz might end up?
Nowhere. I don't. The problem is, I think Carson Wentz was making wasn't it like $30 million a year?
I can't remember. Yeah.
The problem is like that's too much money for a backup.
Yeah.
And he's not playing good enough to start. So It's like I don't know what you do with that. It seemed like his like chance to revive his career was in Indianapolis, and that was 2 years ago.
Yeah.
And then the Commanders seemed like, all right, we're gonna run it back. I thought he was done after the Indy, and then it was like the Commanders did it, and it was like, wow, they believe in him. But now it's like really, really hard to believe that somebody's gonna be like, how do you sell Carson Wentz to a fan base? I mean,
yeah,
how do you...
yeah, at least as a starter too. Like if you bring him in as a veteran, like you said, a veteran backup, yeah, I could see that for like $10 million a year or something like that. But as a starter, I'm not buying that.
Yeah, I think the Commanders are going to. I wrote it down yet. Where are they drafting?
Ooh, I don't know.
Let me see really quick. Draft position is 16th. I think
that's not a good position.
I don't, but here's the thing, okay? Chicago, Arizona, Detroit, Tennessee, Cleveland, who actually traded, so Houston will have that pick again. So Houston won't pick 2 quarterbacks, so that's 5.
Yeah.
And then New England, Green Bay. So there's about 7 teams probably that will not pick a quarterback. So we do 17 minus 16, that's like 9.
Yeah.
So if they could trade up like 6 spots and get to like 10, trade up to like get to where like Carolina's at to be in the top 10, then I think they could draft their quarterback. Because Bill made a really good point. It's like who's going to want to go play for the Commanders, and
Yep.
I talked about that yesterday also on
Mm-hmm.
The Only Football. So
go check it out. Only Football with Kyle out now on YouTube.
It's funny that these keep don't yell at them like that.
Go fucking watch it.
It's like people start leaving in the thing. It's like, no, not now. But yeah, I do think that the Commanders have to draft, because I don't think the Commanders is a destination with Dan Snyder and all of the turmoil and dysfunction that's coming out of the place that anybody would want to go and play quarterback for them. Like, I'm sure Jimmy Garoppolo would rather go to Tampa or New Orleans, or probably Vegas. Yeah. There's a lot of places. I feel like the Commanders is probably the worst destination, because even Houston with DeMeco Ryans and the all the newness of Houston and having the number 2 pick and their choice at a quarterback, because Chicago is probably going to not draft a quarterback if they stay at 1, which they probably won't. But either way, they're going to pick the second guy. So
yeah.
And if they take Bryce Young at number 1, they might still get their number 1 guy, right? Because I doubt Chicago, or I doubt whoever skips with Chicago and Houston both want Bryce Young. I really doubt that. So, yeah, I do think that that's going to be the move for the Commanders. They're going to have to draft, because there's nothing really, any quarterback that comes out of college that gets drafted is stoked to play anywhere. Like, they're just happy to be here,
Yeah.
So, I do think that that's going to be the move. No free agent. And that's the other thing, is like, you can only sell your franchise so many Joe Flacco's and Case Keenums and Matt Ryan, and eventually you're like, hey, can we stop dicking around and get a real quarterback?
Yes.
And I think that is kind of like, okay, Derek Carr, Jimmy Garoppolo, that is like probably the 2 quarterbacks that are going to be moving, that I think are the only 2 that you can really sell.
Yeah.
Like, hey, Jimmy Garoppolo can stay healthy. He took the 49ers to the Super Bowl. I don't think he'll have anything close to the success he had in San Francisco, because there's no Kyle Shanahan, and the roster.
The weapons they're not there.
So, but I still think you could sell him to a desperate franchise, like somebody that's been just getting it wrong for a long time, like the Colts, right?
Yeah.
Jimmy Garoppolo is going to be a Colt. Okay, I feel like that's something that Colts fans would be like, we can get behind that. But anything lower than that, it's like, why are we doing this again? Okay, and I do think owners know when they've run out of, like, tier 3 quarterbacks to sell to the franchise before it starts costing them money and ticket sales and stuff like that. So I just don't think any of those actual tier 2 quarterbacks that are available are going to go to the Commanders. They're going to have to draft a quarterback. And that's the other thing to keep in mind, because we talked about the Commanders having to move up to get their quarterback. But remember, those other teams that need a quarterback in position 1 all the way to number 15, where the Packers are, a lot of those teams are also going to get Jimmy Garoppolo and Derek Carr and whoever else is available. Not all of these teams are going to fix their quarterback situation through the draft.
Yep.
So there's a chance that the Commanders could move up, from 15 to 13 with the Jets or something like that, and be able to take their pick at maybe a Will Levis or Richardson, somebody like that.
Yeah. That's an interesting point too that you bring up, because like you said, they're not going to just get a quarterback through the draft. They're going to get a Jimmy G. They're going to get a Derek Carr. Any of these, like you said, tier 2 type of quarterbacks. I did want to remind you, remember during the offseason when we saw that picture of Carson Wentz in that Washington Commanders red jacket? And I was like, that picture made me feel bad. I was like, I forget my exact quote, but I said something along the lines of like, he looks like he's just grateful that a team picked him up. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And I don't know. It just felt that way his entire time with the Commanders. It did not once feel like he is going to play out his contract in Washington. No, it did not. And I just go back to that picture and I'm just like, that's so sad. It just makes it's like when Sarah McLachlan was doing those commercials for dogs and it was like In the Arms of the Angels was playing in the background and you're just like, "Aw."
Yeah.
That's what I felt like seeing that Carson Wentz picture. I was like, "Oh, he's in Washington. How good." That's great.
I'm making that short. I'm going to have Arms of an Angel in the background and just have him out there and I'm going to clip this part right here of
it's fucking great. Oh, we got Steve in the chat. He said blah blah blah. Cheers, Steve. We haven't seen you in a while. Appreciate you coming on, man. Now Bill said, I want to get to Bill's comment here. What if Chicago takes the first and then trades him away like the Giants did with the Chargers for Eli? Haven't heard anyone float that option. Basically what he's saying is, what if they draft CJ Stroud, Bryce Young, trade the quarterback to, another team for the number 2 pick?
I thought about that too.
I actually had thought about that too because, what he said, with Chargers for Eli, right? The Chargers had drafted Eli, flipped him for Phillip Rivers when the Giants drafted him. That's how it worked. This is a little bit more difficult because the Texans pick right after and the Colts pick 4th. So if they were to draft a Bryce Young, a CJ Stroud, it would have to be done within their time limit, 2 right after they pick him up, and whether they want to make a deal within the Texans time limit or wait until the Colts come up. I just don't know if this is the move because, and we'll kind of get to it later, the Bears want to trade the pick, not necessarily the person, but I do like that option. And Kyle, you said you've thought about that too.
Yeah, I definitely thought about that because I just feel like there's a lot of leverage when you do that, right? Because it's like, hey, we're taking Bryce Young and we're not bluffing, right? And then it's like the Bears drafted him. So it's like if you want him. Now, here's the problem. If the Bears really, if I was in the front office of the Bears, I would say, hey, let's do that. Let's draft Bryce Young. And this is why, is because personally, I don't believe in Bryce Young. So I do think that whatever terrible team that really wants him, whoever makes that trade, let's say, okay, Bryce Young has just been drafted to the Bears, and then he gets traded for a 2024 first-round pick from the Colts. Okay?
Yeah.
Well, here's the deal. I think if Bryce Young fails, right, then that pick is going to be a high pick. But if you believe in the quarterback, let's say a really high quarterback, like a Trevor Lawrence type guy, then it's like, hey, maybe if he does really well, the 2024 first-round pick is going to be a mid-pick.
Yeah.
It's not going to be a number 1 overall pick. So, in a way, having the number 1 overall pick is you have more to leverage than having the quarterback.
That's what I'm saying, yeah.
The pick is worth more than Bryce Young. And especially, if Bryce, but in the case that Bryce Young were to go to another team and suck, it could work in your favor. But why gamble when you already have the number 1 pick, right? So that's the thing.
Yeah, and that's exactly my point. The pick is worth more than the actual player. So I can't see them do that unless it's just like some sort of agreed upon thing, right? Like, hey, we're going to draft Bryce Young. That changes the whole dynamic of the next 2 picks, let's say. And the Colts, you guys are going to draft Will Anderson, or you guys are going to draft Jalen Carter, or you guys are going to draft this person. And then we're going to flip them. And that's how that's going to go. You guys need a quarterback. We need this guy. That's how that's going to go. Just like the Giants and the Chargers. They came to an agreement where they're like, I'm going to draft this person and we're going to give you Eli.
What's the point?
I don't know either. I don't know. It's
why not just draft your guy.
So I think again, it really comes down to how much does this team like that player, right? Are they, not only can we move to their position now, let's say the Bears draft Bryce Young,
a dickhead move.
and that's the other side you got to look at. Like, are you being a dick just to be a dick, because that fucks you over for other drafts, other this, other that? So I don't know, man. It's such, man, to be a GM would be a fucking headache.
It's like that quote, never try to out happy. Like, if you're happy with your guy, right? The only reason you're in the number one pick is because they went for 2 at the end of the season. And it could have been you that was at number 2, and it wouldn't have mattered because the Texans would have drafted their quarterback, and then you still would have got your guy, whether you were at number 1 or number 2. So I would say what I would do, I mean, yeah, it is kind of a dick move, but whatever. Like, it's football and it's a business. So probably what I would do is say, I'm not going to draft. Like, I'm not going to draft Bryce Young, and then you draft, what is it, Will Anderson? What's his name?
Jalen Carter.
Yeah, so you guys draft Jalen Carter, I'll draft Bryce Young, and then we'll switch. That's dumb. Why not just draft your guy, and then they'll draft Bryce Young? But what you could do is you could say, if you want to move up to the number 1 spot, it's going to cost you your first round pick, right? So 1 spot, but then it's also going to cost you your second round pick. Okay. And if you don't do that, then we're going to draft Bryce Young, and that is going to be our price tag for any team that wants to trade for Bryce Young.
Yeah.
It's going to be a first and a second round pick in this draft, not next year.
Yeah.
So that could be something that you do, but once again, ethically, it's kind of a dick move.
Yeah, and there's just a lot of like branches of things you can do. It just again, like I said, to be a GM in the NFL during draft day when you have the number 1 pick must be a fucking headache.
Must be fun though.
It must be like the funnest headache you've ever had.
It must be like a real like high.
Yeah. Honestly.
Just like you're in that grind, every day, just
taking phone calls,
people, moving parts. Like, man, so much stimulation. You might come home from work and just be like bored of your life, and just be like, I gotta get back to the office. I'm sleeping at work tonight.
What am I doing? Making a microwavable dinner? Fuck this shit. I'm gonna go back and make some more calls. Let's move on to another team that has just released the quarterback. The Falcons have released Mariota. It seemed to pretty much come to that conclusion, really, if you watch the Falcons throughout the season. Mariota was doing something at the beginning with that Falcons team. Like, you and I were like, I think we're picking the Falcons this week to win, because what the hell? Like, they're winning. You know what I mean? Yeah. But eventually fell off. He had injuries. I have it here in my notes.
They were running the ball really successful, and that's the main reason they were winning.
And yeah, exactly. It wasn't necessarily Mariota. He threw 15 touchdowns, 9 interceptions. Yikes. After he was benched, he went on the IR. He underwent surgery for his knee, so he was kind of I want to say kind of, but he was hurt pretty much his entire time playing, because if he had to get benched and then went to do his knee surgery, it's like, okay, you were playing with that for a while, which would have made you probably ineffective, which is the reason Desmond Ridder came in. And we were talking about quarterbacks earlier. Does Mariota have a market, Kyle?
No. And I do think every offseason there are quarterbacks that kind of are in a window of having a market, and then there's like chapters that turn, and this is like the Marcus Mariota chapter. Like, the book is over, but he could be a backup. Like, is there a market for him to go back up someone? Yeah, of course.
Yeah.
And there's a backup for Carson Wentz to go back up someone, and those guys can do that if that's what they're interested in doing. But as far as like teams, sitting in a meeting around a table and having, realistic conversations about having Marcus Mariota lead their team, unless you're tanking, then no, I don't think that is, something that I would be interested in at this point. I mean, he looked good in the Raiders uniform for that game he came in for Derek Carr, and that's why his stock went high enough for Atlanta to give him a shot. But I don't know if you remember, we talked about this last season. I said, the quarterback draft class is really good, so I thought they brought in Marcus Mariota, knowing that it wasn't going to go well and that he was just a bridge quarterback to take them. And if it does work out, great, but if it doesn't, then that's fine too, because he's just a bridge to getting our quarterback in this draft. And let's see, where are
I think the Falcons are picking 8th. They're 8th.
So 8th pick, so that's a potential team that could trade up, or maybe just stay where they're at and get one of those other guys that if
not the top 2, not the top 3 guys.
Yeah, or maybe the third. You know what I mean? But maybe the quarterback out of Florida. Kentucky's quarterback has been interesting too, but they're saying he might go to Carolina. This is fun stuff, man.
The draft is always fun because you always are like, this person needs a quarterback, this team needs a quarterback, and then the draft comes and it's just mayhem. It is absolute mayhem.
Drafts, I mean, this is like if this is your hard-earned mock draft that you've been just spending hours on, it's like 3 minutes into the draft, you're just... Wait a minute. This guy went at 12. I
got one right. Oh, and this is what, and Steve agrees with you. He says, I think he has a market as a backup. And I agree, because that's all I think he's going to be. But I cannot wait for when this season comes up, when Mariota is a backup to, I don't know, the Carolina Panthers or the Bengals or something like that, for example, right? Like, he's going to need to go in a game, and he is going to have 3 great drives that are going to make people go, oh, is Mariota back? and you've seen this happen with not only him, but Teddy Bridgewater, right? Like, RG3.
Or wait,
like,
no. Geno Smith.
Yeah. Like, this shit happens. Geno Smith last year was probably the best story out of all of them. Like, he took the Seahawks to the playoffs. Teddy Bridgewater, Bridgewater got that starting position in Denver. He looked good in Denver, and then got or did he not look good in Denver? I thought he did all right.
He looked like Teddy Bridgewater.
Okay, all right. So maybe he didn't look great, but he looked, again, like, he gave it. He had enough tape for someone to be like, let's give him another contract. Yeah, he's a great leader in the locker room.
He's a great leader, but he doesn't have like the intangibles. But he will, like, once in a while make a play that you're like, Teddy Bridgewater. He's a bad man, that Teddy Bridgewater, and then. Then it's just at times like you would talk about how in the offs on like bye weeks and stuff like that, he like doesn't watch sports. He doesn't watch football. Like, to him, it's just like a job. Yeah. And as much as
that's kind of weird,
I thought like, that's really good compartmentalization. But if you're really passionate about something, like, you don't take a break. You know what I mean? There's no break. You guys have a toxic relationship with the sport to be great.
It is one of those weird things when athletes are like, I don't really watch this sport or sports when I'm not playing, and I'm kind of like, how? But that's just me. Like, I fucking love football. Like, if there's football on, I'm watching it. So I'm just kind of like, what's wrong with you, in a sense, right? Like, I'm like, what is your problem?
These are the same people that are like dreading, with the kickoff. They're like dreading week 8 because your team's on a bye week. Yeah. They're like, God, I don't want week 8 to come around. We don't play a game. It's gonna be a long 2 weeks. And meanwhile, these players that we're so upset about not playing are like, I'm not even watching football.
What's Sports Center? I've never heard of that. Like, what? Are you kidding me? Are you fucking insane? Have you seen
Fever Pitch?
Yeah.
I think I've said this example, but after they lost like Game 6, he's like they're at the bar like crying, the fans, and then they see the players in the corner eating the steak, and they're just sitting here having a good time. Yeah. And he's like, that's the point. You guys don't get it. Like, it's just a game to them. Like, it's not, they're not making life decisions based off this shit like the fans are. And it's just funny sometimes to see that, that relationship the players have with football is so different than the relationship that fans have with football. And sometimes you love when a player gets it, though. Like, it's nothing better than having a player on your team that is a huge fan of the sport as well.
I know. It always makes you it makes you feel like, okay, this isn't worthless. This person cares about it as much as I do, and this is a player in the league or something like that. So
or it just crying in a press conference, you're like, yes.
Yeah. It's my quarterback. He's my quarterback. Oh, Steve's saying it would need to be a team that is set for the running quarterback. He's not going to help you if you have a pocket passer. He's not good at passing. He really isn't. I mean, 15 touchdowns, 9 interceptions. That kind of just shows you where he's at. He's like basically a little bit below average. But yeah, no, I think you're right.
There's only one coach that could revive him, and that team doesn't need a quarterback. And it's Kyle Shanahan in San Francisco. And he would make Marcus Mariota look so damn good, I bet.
Do you think if the whole Brock Purdy situation is maybe a little bit worse, or maybe he's not ready for week 1, they would pick up a Mariota? Or would they go back to Jimmy G? Would they go to Derek Carr?
They would go with Trey Lance.
Yeah, that's I completely forget about Trey Lance. That's so sad. Insane. That is so insane. All right, let's move on to the next one. Our next segment. So Leslie Frazier, defensive coordinator for the Buffalo Bills, is taking 2023 off. I don't know if it's necessarily some sort of like, hey, I'm just taking some sort of sabbatical type of thing, but he just announced that he's planning to step away from next season, but he plans on returning to in 2024. Since joining Buffalo in 2017, the Bills have ranked 6th or better in yards allowed in 4 of Frazier's 6 seasons, and in the top 2 in points surrendered on 3 occasions. The Bills have forced 158 turnovers since 2017, and that's good for second most in the NFL. So with Leslie Frazier leaving, not necessarily leaving, but taking the year off, can you see a situation next season where the Bills defense maybe takes a step down from where they're at? Nothing huge, but like, is it considerable? Is it like, does it make an impact?
Well, I laughed so hard when I saw this because all I could think about was like him freaking out in the booth.
No. That was the offensive coordinator.
Oh, I thought that was Leslie Frazier.
No, I forget his name, but Leslie Frazier was the guy who gave up that 10-point lead that 7-point lead to the Chiefs in that divisional round between both the Bills and Chiefs. Yeah.
Okay, so it's not as funny anymore. Okay, so now I have to have a real
It's still funny that you thought that was him.
I think. Okay, so this is defensively. This is genius on Leslie Frazier's part because he may actually need to take some time, and I think that's a great thing to do. He's
like 63 years old.
Dude, it was like when I watched the Kyle Shanahan press conference after, they had no shot to beat the Eagles. It was like the biggest, like, it was the most disappointing football game probably ever.
Yeah.
Just like not having a quarterback in that type of a game. It's like, dude, there's nothing more. And then, and you just see like, all of this, work and that last week of prepping for the Eagles and just everything that goes into it in the film and staying up till 2 a.m. looking for a play that'll work or a busted coverage, and then the game ends like that. And then you hear Kyle Shanahan go, well, it's like, back to the off season. We got to make sure we can keep our player. It's like,
oh, okay. Sorry. No, go ahead.
Yeah, for him to flip the page and be like, okay, so that was the end of that page, and now we're on to 2024, and we got to start building our roster and getting our training staff together. It's like, wait a minute, what? Like, man, that in year in and year in and year in, like, it's just everything you got, come up short, do it again. And it's almost even harder if you win the Super Bowl. It's like, okay, that was last season, right? You have 3-4 weeks to celebrate, and then we got to start getting back to business again.
Yeah.
Like, for fans, it feels like, because the season's only 4 months long, 5 months if you did really well, and then the off season is like 9 months long, and it just seems like to us sometimes like, oh man, football they have such a long break, but for the front office, they don't have a long break. Like, they can't even really bask in the glory for too long, or they'll get caught with their pants down next season. So they have to they have to move on pretty quick. And I feel like, just watching that press conference, I was like, man, I feel exhausted for you. Like,
for Shanahan,
we can't just wake up tomorrow and start thinking about 2020. Like, we need some real time to breathe. And I could see a guy like Leslie Frazier that at his age is like, I don't have it in me to just run it back again. You know what I mean? I need to take a freaking, year off and go to the Philippines, like homeboy in Arizona.
Cliff Kingsbury.
Yeah, he was looking up Airbnbs in the Philippines all off season. He's like,
he was in week 18 going like, no, ooh, that one looks good.
He had that place booked in September.
Oh, yeah.
He's like, oh, yeah. I already know where I'm going. 5-star host. I'm out of here. But then there's the other side of it where the Bills said, like, they would take him back next season, right? So then you have job security also. So now you're taking care of yourself. You have job security. But here's the other thing. There's going to be head coach vacancies. And Leslie Frazier will be available to negotiate with, the same way Sean Payton stepped away from the Saints and then joined the Broncos. Leslie Frazier has job security with the Bills. He has potential to be a head coach at a different team. And he also is taking care of his mental health in his family if he has one. So I just think every way you look at it, like, it's a dub for Leslie Frazier. Like, it's just, unless the Bills win the Super Bowl this year, then it kind of sucks.
And the defense is like a huge part of it. Then Leslie Frazier's like, oh, fuck.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
I'm definitely not going to be a head coach.
Yeah, I'm my sabbatical is the rest of my life. I like this comment that Bill said. He said, Frazier taking a year-long darkness retreat. Aaron Rodgers is out, by the way. Apparently he liked it. He thought about a lot of things, so good for him.
Did he?
Yeah, he's like, I thought about my life, retired, and I thought about my life playing the game. And I'm like, so you still have zero answers for us. Like, what the? Whatever. We could talk about that next week. Let's move on to our final segment of the episode, and we'll talk a little bit about Mel Kiper's mock draft. And this is really more Bear-centric. I just want to say that off the bat. This is just me kind of.
I'll see you guys next week. Thank you.
Only Football with Rick starts now.
Time to bear down.
Time to bear down. So he has the Bears trading back twice, and he pretty much outlined how he's going to do it. And this is before the whole Jalen Carter thing did come out. So he said that he has the Bears trading back twice and still landing Jalen Carter. Obviously, with all the stuff going on, that does impact Jalen Carter's draft status and everything else. But what he has outlined said the Bears trade back with the Texans for the number 2 pick, a 3rd and 4th rounder, and a 3rd rounder in next year's draft. After that, they trade with the Colts to move to number 4, and they gain the number 35 pick to kind of make up for the pick they gave up to the Steelers for what's his name, the wide receiver that they picked up.
Yeah.
And Claypool. Yep, they gained the number 35 pick as well as more 3rd and 4th round picks. So he didn't necessarily say how many picks, but he's more like, it's probably going to be more 3rd, 4th rounders either this year and maybe one next year. So what do you think about that, Kyle? Do you think that because we were just talking about the mock drafts and you literally ripped the paper because like 1 minute in you're like, oh, well, this didn't go as planned. Do you kind of look at that and go, that sounds like something the Bears would do, and you could see that happening?
Yeah, so I tear up the mock draft, especially when they put it in order like every team because of the trades up. That's why it doesn't work out.
Yeah.
And then you have like, you're guessing that, the Broncos are going to trade a third to move up 2 slots. And it's almost like such a finite detail that it's like you're trying too hard.
Yeah.
But then there's like clear, obvious to me trade backs. And this is definitely one of them. I do think the Bears are going to move back. The Texans are going to give them a second round pick or something. The Bears are going to get their guy anyway. But then again, that if they don't really want, and now with all this stuff coming up about imagine this. Imagine the only guy you're willing to pick at 2 was Will Anderson. Is that his name?
Yeah.
Was Will Anderson. And now with this, they're like, you know what? Like, whatever, character flaw. We don't want him at number 2. Okay. So then at number 2, the Bears are on the clock, and then the Colts call. And the Colts are like, hey, we can move up right now and get our guy. Like, the Colts haven't made a move. I mean, I know free agency hasn't started, but I don't think the Colts are looking to make a move for any free agent quarterback. When you look at the places Derek Carr has visited, it's really likely he'll land in New Orleans or New York for the Jets. And so both of those teams, right, they're not named the Indianapolis Colts because the Colts want to get their quarterback in the draft. So then I think the Colts will trade up to the Bears position, and then I think the Bears will move back to like 5, right?
5.
So where are the Colts at?
4.
So then they'll move to 4, and then who's picking at 3? The Seahawks, right?
No. The Cardinals are picking at 3. The Seahawks, I think, are picking 5.
So I do think the Cardinals may move back as well, because the Cardinals.
Oh, okay.
The Cardinals, if the Bears are lucky, the Cardinals won't, right? Because the Cardinals. Now, if the Bears are lucky, the Cardinals will move back, because a team that needs a quarterback like the Commanders, it would take a lot, but somebody could jump the draft board and go up to 3 and get only if one of these quarterbacks really stands out, like what happened to Zach Wilson.
Yeah.
Then, because Bryce Young is going to go in the 1 or 2, and then you have
Stroud, 1 or 2.
Stroud, 1 or 2. But then you have Kentucky's quarterback and Richardson out of Florida. One of those 2, if their stock goes way up, then you have a team that might want to jump up with Arizona to swap, and Arizona will do it because they're in the rebuild. So Arizona's in a rebuild.
With a quarterback.
Exactly. They're in a rebuild with the quarterback. They're like, no, more picks is better, and take advantage of a team desperate for a quarterback. And then the Bears, they've moved back twice, and guess what? They draft Will Anderson at number 5 or number 4.
Number 4, yeah.
So, I mean, I feel like that is such a great scenario. You're going to pick him anyway at 1. Now you move back to 4. And let's say you got 3 extra picks in the draft, and you still got the best defensive player, on the draft board. And if Arizona doesn't move back and they pick him, that's the chance you were willing to take. And you win some, you lose some. But there's going to be the number 1 edge rusher on the board for the Bears. So they're going to get their defensive player.
And even in that situation that you literally just outlined, Seattle picking number 5, if the Bears are like, hey, Seattle, do you want to move up to number 4 because you also technically need a quarterback? Geno Smith isn't going to be there forever. The man's like mid-30s, early 30s, whatever it is. He's not good.
He's your age.
Shut up. He's not going to be their franchise guy, right? Like, maybe do you want a Will Levis or Richardson, again, if their stock goes high enough, and maybe some other quarterback comes out of the woodwork and is like, hey, that guy looks good at 4, Seattle. We'll give you the 4th pick if you give us 5 and a 4th rounder, a 2nd rounder next year, something like that, right? So there's a lot of ways this can play out. I play a lot of these scenarios in my head, honestly. Like, as a Bears fan, I was like, because a lot of guys are like, the Bears are picking Will Anderson number 1, and I'm like, there's no fucking way. There's no reason to do that. There's absolutely zero reason to do that. So I just hope. And you know, I don't want to make this all about the Bears, but it's so.
Okay. It's the number one pick.
Yeah,
and it's like, you know, even if you weren't a Bear fan, like it is probably the most interesting storyline right now because it's just, when do we have teams picking number one overall that just don't need a quarterback? I mean, it happens, but it's just like you guys just got your quarterback. You know what I mean? So it's like it's an interesting scenario, and it's interesting to see the boatload of picks the Bears could if they do it right, or they could fuck it all away and grab Will Anderson with the number one overall pick, and you're like,
that's so funny.
Bears.
That's what I'm hoping for. Is just like, I don't necessarily need a king's ransom for the number one pick. I want a king's ransom at the end of that first round. That's what I want. Like, regardless of how many picks you get, like, if you get one extra second rounder, an extra third and fourth rounder, plus second, third, fourth rounders next year, you're in the money right there. You know, you make your money in the second, third, fourth rounds, right? Yeah. Like, that's where it really is. So, just as a Bears fan, I'm excited. I love all the hype going around this pick, to be honest. The Bears haven't had this much hype around them during the draft since they moved up from 3 to 2 to draft fucking Mitch Trubisky, whatever.
I'm right there with you. Like, the pairing of Russell Wilson and Sean Payton, it's just like every time I go on SportsCenter, they're like talking about it, and I'm just like, man, this is nice.
This is nice. They're talking about my team.
Drew Lock and Vic Fangio, no one even cares. You know what I mean? It's like they won with 1 second left, and it's just like the Broncos beat the Chargers today. And other news, Aaron Rodgers. And it's like, wait, show the highlights.
You're like, no, wait, I want to see highlights. Oh, that's so funny. Oh, all right.
When your team's in national spotlight, but the Seahawks, one thing to keep in mind though is that they drafted Russell Wilson in the third round, and I don't know if they're the kind of team that, you know, is gonna pick a quarterback in the first round. Like, they might, you know, it's sometimes when it works once, you just feel like you have a knack for, you know, finding a good quarterback in the later rounds. So, I mean, and statistically, like, it just seems like a lot of the quarterbacks that are taken in the first round between like number 1 and number 5, like, they don't always pan out, man. I mean,
they don't. They really don't.
Don't always, because we had, I mean, at one point, Marcus Mariota and Jameis Winston were like, you know, 2 good quarterbacks.
They were C.J. Stroud and Bryce Young.
Yeah, even better. I mean, they were like, Jameis Winston was a really good player at Florida State, and they won every game besides one his whole time being there. And then, and even in when he got drafted, he was good. But it's just like another thing to have the longevity of a career, and that's what's like so hard to do. And that's why, man, I'm a huge fan of like Joe Burrow, but even Patrick Mahomes. You know what I mean? Like, what was he picked? 15th, I think, in the first round at number 15.
Something like that. I can't remember.
And he wasn't highly, you know. So there are teams that probably pride themselves like, hey, let them go crazy about Bryce Young. We got our guy out of Texas A&M. No one's talking about this dude, and you know, everybody wants to be the guy that sees something that no one else sees. And maybe Seattle has a knack for it. We'll see.
Yeah, no, definitely. We will definitely see what happens. This is going to be one of the most interesting drafts that I've had. And I mean, the draft where we drafted Justin Fields was probably like, holy shit, this is awesome. So this is going to be very interesting. I really enjoyed that. I think we should definitely go live for that. I think a lot of shit is going to happen that we should absolutely go live for that.
Do you think the Big League Chicago will want to be live for that though?
We'll make it an only football thing.
You heard it first. He chose me.
Yeah. I think
it is football. I mean,
it's all football. I mean, we're going over the NFL draft, not only not only the Chicago one. Like, it's going to be a huge spotlight, but only like it's the NFL in general. So I think only football needs to be on the case here.
Yeah.
So we'll definitely be the ones on there. So definitely catch Kyle and I when we do go live for the draft. We'll work some stuff out. We'll make a nice little post and post it up about a couple days or so before that, so you guys can catch us live.
And if I'm right about the Bears in all those trades in the order I said, even Arizona moving back, and you are going to have to start taking steroids. and
what the fuck?
And then you're gonna have to look like this. Are you ready?
Okay.
This is how I want you to look going into the next season.
Oh, here we go. I'm just gonna roid rage so much. Oh no! I'll look great. I will look great. I just want to say,
that same pick in that same position.
It's gotta be a Bears thong though. I think, right?
Yeah. I don't know, and I want to see your ribs. I don't know why people think that looks good.
I don't get it. I don't know. I don't like being that ripped. I've come to terms with the fact that I'm gonna have a belly for the rest of my life. It just depends how strong I can be.
Yeah, no, there's like you know, the what do they call it? Like farm boy strength. It's a real thing.
Yeah,
right?
That farm country strength.
Those are your offensive linemen.
Yeah,
like,
those are the Nebraska boys, corn-fed.
Those are the steel factory guys.
Yeah,
their hands. My dad's dad was worked at a steel factory his whole life.
Yeah.
Apparently he was an asshole and he like knocked out his kids and shit.
Oh my god.
He said like he like would my dad's brother tried to arm wrestle him and he snapped his wrist. He would like squeeze people's hands and like break them and shit.
Oh my god.
Yeah, and but he had a belly, but he just worked in like a steel factory his whole life.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
If your job is to like lift things heavy and then walk around with them, or to lift them up for a short period, you're working out. You are working out.
Yeah, and I wonder what he would think. He died of cancer. I was like, I wonder what he would think about you like in in a tight V-neck in Miami. You know?
Hey, you come here often? You're shaking a drink for somebody, pouring it for them. Oh, Steve,
grunt
Steve's you fucking pussy. Steve giving me a great compliment here. Start. I thought he was already on them. Thank you, Steve. Thank you. Appreciate that.
Because our show's so good.
Yeah. All right. Before we get out of here, I just want to give a shout out to not only Steve, but Bill as well, and a newcomer, Ishant Ariel. Hopefully, again, I said that right. Thank you guys for joining the stream. As always, we really, really, really appreciate you guys coming on here and interacting with us in the comments. It's always a fun time when you guys are here.
Yeah, it was super funny when he asked you, because you said we got
Ishant
in the chat, and then he said, "Are you guys live?" And I thought, well, it'd be really weird if we weren't, because you were literally responding to it.
Yeah, we're responding, dude. What do you mean, are we live?
Am I tripping right now? Are we live?
No, we pre-recorded this and knew you were going to be on, and we called you on.
Too much, I gotta go.
Am I in the fucking Matrix right now? What's going on? Oh, God, those are so funny. All right, well, like I said earlier in the show, we have our Venmo, our Cash App, and our PayPal up top here on the screen. And if you're listening on podcast, we would really appreciate if you guys would support us on Venmo at OnlyFootball, and on Cash App and PayPal at OnlyFootballKR. We'd really appreciate any donations, any sort of support you guys could give us. It would mean the world to us. If we can get to the Super Bowl in Las Vegas, that would be sick.
The first dollar that's donated,
we
are going to frame it right here
on the
wall behind us.
Yes.
Whoever it is, I'm saying the first dollar, like dollar bill. So whatever it is, so if you donate a 20. It'll be a 20. If it's a 1, it's a 1, but it will be framed and set up in the studio, and
with your name on there. Thank you.
I guess we'd have to send it to you through the mail. You sign it and send it back to us, and we'll frame it.
Absolutely. We will absolutely do that. So, if you guys would support us like that, that would be absolutely something we would do, and we would appreciate it so much. And also another announcement. So, a couple actually. One, we are moving our NFL news episodes to Monday. So now our trivia our trivia shows, our trivia lives will be on Thursday, because Kyle and I thought about it. We're like, bars really do trivia on like Wednesdays and Thursdays, random as hell, right? So we're like, let's kind of do it like the bars. So Thursdays is going to be our trivia nights. Next week Monday is going to start our NFL news days on Mondays. Thursdays will be trivia. Only Football with Kyle will remain on Wednesdays, so no change to that. Or was it? Yeah, Wednesdays.
Yeah, Wednesdays.
Yep. So, like I said, I'll put a post up. You guys will get it on Instagram, on YouTube, all sorts of stuff. But we just wanted to make that announcement. Another announcement we wanted to make, and we kind of wanted to make it to everyone who's listening, anyone in the chat, anyone watching on YouTube. What Kyle and I want to do, a good strategy we want to do, and this is more geared towards the fans, towards people listening, is we want to interview you on Only Football. Fans of every team, of all 32 teams. I want to interview another Bears fan. Kyle wants to interview another Denver fan. We did interview Ross, so we do want to do another Patriots fan as well. But, if we don't, well, then we already have one. But we would love to interview fans of every single team. So if you'd like to be on Only Football, we can send you a link. We could talk about your team in the offseason, all sorts of cool stuff. We just want to make it more geared towards the fan experience. So if you know anybody that would like to come on, or if you would like to come on, that would be great to have you on and talk about your team. But yeah, those are the two announcements. Bill, you're saying it's not coming up on PayPal. Confirm the name if you can. Yeah, I'll double check here, Kyle, if you just want to talk a little bit.
So a lot of people actually really enjoyed we got good feedback from the interview that I did with Rusty. So I took it to Twitter, and I actually went to a lot of like fan pages. So like Denver Bronco fan pages, every team has like their own fan page, and I just put out some feelers and got some messages. So what I'll do though is So do you want to do the interviews on our Monday episodes, or do you want me to do them on the Only Football with Kyle?
So I think what we'll do is we'll pre-record them. We won't necessarily make them live, just because we don't. We kind of want to make it where we release it, and it's just like a fan talking to us, just about their team and stuff. So we can
release it any day.
Yeah, we could release it any day. We'll talk about maybe doing live. I don't know. We're going to figure it out, but we would love to try to at least gain some traction with like a fan from like, I don't know, the Bengals or something like that on here. And then we can kind of, go from there.
Yeah, for sure. And I just think that'll be a lot of fun to get, that kind of insight on, because nobody knows the state of the franchise better than the fanatic of the team. Like if I wanted to learn about what the read the temperature of a Giants fan, and Daniel Jones, I would go ask Giants fans that. So definitely be looking at our channel under videos for those to be uploaded, and definitely before I actually upload the video, what I'll do on my end is I will make a short kind of I'll clip the best part of the interview, and I'll release a short. So if you guys follow our shorts, then you'll be cued in to know, okay, the short came out, the video is about to drop within, 6 hours or however long it takes to upload YouTube videos, which I found out yesterday takes a really long time. So everyone give Rick a round of applause for uploading these videos. I just thought my computer wasn't working. Every time I was uploading it, I exited out and restarted. And then I was like, wait,
it's
hours.
I know, dude. And it's so funny because I was telling Kyle and Bill, we saw your comment. We will definitely get on that. We appreciate you. Thank you, Bill. I can't say that enough to Bill. I thank you so much. I will sit here after episodes, upload it on YouTube, with a thumbnail, upload it on for the podcast and stuff. And I will literally sit here on YouTube. And I told him this. I was like, sometimes YouTube, the amount of time it takes to upload is probably similar to how long the episode was. So I'll sit here, hit upload on YouTube. I'll have everything else done. I'll go shower. I'll go make dinner. I'll go have a drink. I'll go watch a show. And then I'll come back and be like, cool, not done yet? All right, let me go do something else. And then I'll come back to my computer. It's finally uploaded. I'm like, all right, cool, we're done. But it is a lengthy process for YouTube. But if we didn't have YouTube, if we didn't have all this, Tom Grassi wouldn't have rated us. Bill, Steve, Jinja, all these guys wouldn't be here watching us. So we're grateful to YouTube for that.
Yeah, I've always been a big YouTube. I always wanted YouTube to be where we had our biggest fingerprint, just because YouTube's the platform. I'm biased, YouTube.
I love YouTube so much
that I've used. Yeah, for my I'm a YouTube guy. I've always been a YouTube guy. I have YouTube Premium. It's the only thing that I pay for. I don't do Amazon Prime. I don't do Paramount Plus, but I do YouTube Premium, and it's my one thing, because not having commercials is clutch when you're on YouTube all the time trying to screen record things, and a commercial pops up in the middle of your screen record. You're like, damn it. So especially if you're a content creator, YouTube Premium's the way to go if you guys are starting a YouTube page.
Definitely. You want to get past the ads, and I'm a guy who likes to He likes the ads. I like the ads. I got the
big ads.
What's up?
You like the big ads?
Oh yeah, absolutely. Big ads. I love the big ads. But other than that, Kyle, where can they find you on Twitter? Again, Bill, we will definitely send you a message, but where can they find you on Twitter, Kyle?
Yeah, you guys can find me at FTBLONLYPODCAST, Football Only Podcast, for all the retweets, all the tweets, the funny memes, everything that could make you guys happy and satisfied.
Whoa, I love that. You can follow me at @andnowrick on Twitter, and follow the Star 6 Media page at _Star6 Media, where you can find us tweeting about the Bills, the Bears, the Colts, the Broncos, everything football and every other sport, like the shows that we have as well, like EAFP, JCA Sports, 3 Up, 3 Down, which will be making its return soon, Sports Strip Live, it's no longer called Sports Strip Live, it's called The Main Event, for all your fighting, bloody sports needs, as well as Slot Shot Hockey Podcast. And aside from Twitter, go check us out on Instagram at Star6 Media. We're getting over 100 followers. We're putting our show schedule up there, and it's going to be another home soon to Only Football with Kyle, where you can catch it on Instagram as well as YouTube. So definitely go check that stuff out. Kyle, give us the chives. What are the chives here?
The chives. The chives are going to be...
Oh, no. Oh, Dan, no.
This one's for Bill. Check out Only Football with Kyle's episode next Wednesday for me to do a deep dive in Daniel Jones' contract situation.
Let's go.
And what Daniel Jones is actually worth to the Giants, and what his market is as a quarterback to the NFL after his success, not just last season, but that playoff game that really kind of took his worth way up. His stock after that playoff game, I mean, that went higher in one game than any player in recent memory ever has gone in one game. So check out that video for sure.
I love it. Kyle coming in with the deep cuts here. I love it. All right, guys. Again, thank you to Bill, to Steve, and to Ishtar. Ishant. Sorry. Ishant for being in the comments and checking us out. Again, if you guys like the podcast, so hit that subscribe button, hit that share button, hit the like button, hit the thumbs up button, anything you can, and rate us on all the podcast platforms. That would be awesome. So we will see you guys on Monday. Again, that will be our NFL news episode. And Thursday, we will have our trivia. Kyle, always a pleasure, man. I will see you next time.
See ya.
See ya.